Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 62 of the ITSM crowd. My name's Claire Agutter. I'm going to be your host for today's session, and our theme for today, rather originally, is 2019 year in review and a little bit of a forward look to 2020 and what should be on your radar as a service management professional. So we've got a brilliant panel with us today, and first of all I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. So Paul, if you would like to kick us off, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Claire. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Paul. I'm a global solutions architect and I work for a very large global IT outsourcing company. My role is looking after the cross-functional services solutions. So I focus on service management, ITSM tooling, governance, security governance, and I also head up the global solutions community for cross-functional services as well. So my background is really heavy in service management and the service integration, tooling, and process management.
Thank you very much. And Chris?
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Williams from Durham University Business School. I'm a reader in management here, and my main focus right now is the online MBA. I'm the director of our online MBA program. My main area of research is to do with strategy and innovation in international companies. And I've taught in the past in a number of different areas, including management consultancy.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Kat?
Hi, I'm Kat Turner. I'm the Education Portfolio Manager at ITSM Zone. I've been with ITSM Zone for 2 years, and my main role is course production, content creation. I've also got, I think, 14 years experience now in writing and validating courses, in mainly IT-based, multimedia-based courses as well. And you'll often see me presenting at conferences around the country as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel McElroy and I'm Chief Marketing Officer for Solutionize Global. They're a managed service provider into their tech industry. And for a lot of this year, I have been researching and producing a white paper on cloud leadership. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So welcome everyone. For the people watching us online, we can see any comments or questions that you put onto the YouTube comments. So if you've got something that you would like to ask the panel, or if there's something that you'd like us to address during this broadcast while we're live, you can put that into the YouTube comments and we will pick it up and we will see it here. So please feel free to do that. So really what we're going to do today is just with the panel kind of pick up what have been the most significant events in their field, because as you'll have seen from the introductions, we've got some slightly different perspectives, different industries, different focus areas. For me, 2019 just seems to have gone in an absolute blur, but that might be an indication of how old I'm getting. But it just seems to have gone so quickly that I'm sure there's a lot that I've missed. So I guess, Paul, if we can start with you, please. Tell us what the kind of the big themes for 2019 have been.
Yeah,
for you.
sure, Claire. No problem. It's a guessing game. So it begins with A. There's one word that I think I've said more than any other word in my whole career this year, and also a word that I've heard more. It begins with the letter A. Can anybody guess what this word is? And I'll take any guesses.
Is it automation?
Oh, there you go, Rachel. Spot on. Absolutely spot on. It's been, yeah, so automation for me has been a word that I've heard a lot and have had many conversations both internally with our own organizations and with clients and customers. I think my very briefly, so around my thoughts around automation are kind of that I think ultimately there's always been automation, and sometimes I do get quite cynical. I work in service management and tooling and what have you, but I'm I can kind of still remain quite cynical about what I see around me. I think we've always had automation, kind of legacy automation, and it's kind of really come to the forefront in this past year. For me, it's really about, and this is kind of, you will feel some of my pain here, is that there's such a plethora of solutions for automation around AI, machine learning, RPA. There's so much going on that really I feel that the value in automation is the intelligent use of the right tools to do it, right? So you don't just go in there, right, bang, right, automate this, automate that, let's automate, which you very often see. So for me, what I've been really trying to do this year is and again, like I say, both internally and externally, is have conversations about, look, well, we have portfolios of automation tooling, we have approaches and frameworks and what have you, but really it's about picking the right tool for the right job. And I know there's nothing new there. But it's really looking into that, getting value out of the right approach, using the right tool, and kind of making sure that you don't just automate for the sake of it. Certainly, we've seen this year that outsourcing deals can be won and lost based on your automation content. You know, what is your solution? What are you bringing to the table? So, yeah. So that's something that's really played a huge part in all different types and parts of our solutions, be it from hybrid orchestration and the automation of services, across the board, to more kind of point solutions and niche solutions, back end automation of provisioning of IT services through portals and what have you, through the more the leveraging more use of APIs and this type of thing. So yes, and automation has been one of the biggest kind of sort of phrases and topics certainly that I've heard this year. Claire, I've almost gone from A to Z, but I've gone to X. So I've got X is my next one, and I don't know if it's an acronym. It's an acronym, but it starts with the letter X. Any guesses for this one?
Oh, is it XLAs?
Yay! You guys are too good. You guys are just too good. Yeah, XLAs. So again, and I'm sure we're all working service management, and the shift between delivering the classic SLA type service, sort of like service consumer, vendor and service provider, the service level agreement, the old kind of, I said the old, it's not old because we're still going to do it and we'll do it for years, I'm sure, but that kind of, if you like, sort of bilateral relationship between provider and consumer, and now there's a third party in the triangle, that the end user is now coming into play. And that's again really key this year. I've been writing negotiating and writing contract schedules based on writing in XLAs, how we manage the end user experience, where's the proactivity in how we're managing it, what tool sets are we using to do that, what criteria, how are we, because for me it's all about perception and XLAs about experience. So it's challenging because you can't just say availability 99.9 whatever it may be. This is about an end user's perception of the surface that he or she is receiving. So that's been another big one, writing that into contracts, producing collateral on it, and sort of, having those kind of discussions. So those are two that I've got there, guys. I've got a few more, but I don't want to take all the extra.
we might come back to you for them, Paul.
Yeah, sure.
I think XLA is definitely something that I'm seeing more and more about, and for anybody watching who's not familiar with the term, we did actually have Alan Nance and Lisa Schwartz on, I think 2 or 3 episodes back, on the ITSM crowd. They're doing a lot of pioneering work in the XLA space, so if you do want a quick primer on XLAs, definitely recommend you go to the YouTube channel and go back through there. So Rachel, I'm going to come to you next, because you've been doing a lot of research in the kind of the cloud space, and maybe that links to automation a little bit. So tell us a little bit about your 2019.
My 2019, as I alluded to in my introduction, I spent a lot of time producing a 76-page cloud leadership definitive guide, featuring about 40 leading authors. Oh, thank you very much, Claire. Claire is in it, yeah. And actually, it started off as a white paper around the, I suppose, the trials and the difficulties and the experiences of leaders within the cloud industry. And it soon turned into a mammoth Bible, I suppose, about everything from operating models to automation to future trends to IoT to edge computing. I went out and met with a lot of companies, Microsoft feature, Dell feature, ServiceNow, Hewlett Packard, and actually a lot of smaller companies that are doing some really amazing work with things like data analytics, a couple of leads companies that are in there. So it was a really, really interesting project. And actually it was, I suppose, quite comforting to find that it doesn't matter what size business you are or how long you've been in business, whether you're, you know, a startup or an established company, everyone is suffering from the same issues. Everyone has the same challenges. Everyone has the same difficulties. You would hear the story time and time again. So it was really interesting, very comforting. One of the key themes that came out of that actually was I thought that everybody would want to talk about the technology, but actually technology is just an enabler. And what soon became very apparent is that actually without people and the right culture and the right skills, you won't actually succeed in your business at all. You can have all the tools, all the technology, all the automation and the machine learning and everything else, but if you don't utilize it correctly and have the right people within your teams, then you won't get very far. And that was just an absolute theme throughout. So there's actually a very heavy presence, I suppose, within that cloud leadership guide around actually the importance of people, looking after your people, about culture, diversity. If we want to go through the alphabet, we can go D, diversity. I've got some stats to share with you all later on that. But it was a really, really fascinating project, and there is hard copies and online copies, which I can say that I was very proud to look back and think, wow, we've produced all of this information for people to have a read of.
Yeah, it was pretty much a book by the end of it. But there is a in the blog for this episode on the ITSM Zone website, there is a link if you want to go download a free copy of Rachel's excellent white paper. But talk to us for a couple of minutes about diversity as well, because I know you've been doing a lot of work in that area too.
The really interesting thing is I started doing a couple of blogs about diversity, and we shared some content, and then I got bombarded with publications and websites wanting me to produce articles about diversity. And it seems to be a very hot topic. When you pitch to them about really technical subjects, actually they want to talk about people, about culture, about diversity. And I suppose I look at it in the way that how can you build the right products and services for people if you don't actually have a diverse team? Your data set is potentially biased inherently. You're not actually singing in lots of different voices. You're singing all in one voice. And very early on within the research, we spoke to Microsoft, who cited a very well-known wearable that is actually, that all the data for it, I've actually got one on my wrist at the minute, but I won't name names. Other wearables are available. But basically, all of the data is male data. So if you go for a walk in a park with, if I went for a walk with my husband, his steps and my steps would be different because he's got, the way he walks is different. He's got longer strides. He's taller than me, all kinds of things. So actually, that data of the biggest wearable that's probably on the market is skewed towards men over women. And I've just been doing some research for another article that I've been asked to write, and I was having a look at the Tech Nation Diversity and Inclusion report for this year. And interestingly enough, they surveyed and analysed all the companies' house data for limited companies, and there are 12.5 million companies that they looked at, and 77% of those that are in the tech sector have basically boards, all male boards. And actually, when you look back in time thinking, oh, it's been really high profile and it must have got better, they looked at the data from 2000 and it was running at 24% women, and in 2018 it's running at 21.9%. So despite very high profile campaigns and conversation, it's still a massive issue. And certainly companies like Facebook, like Microsoft, like various other the large Silicon Valley tech companies have been publishing their figures, their diversity figures, since 2014 publicly, and there isn't actually a great improvement. Facebook have seen an improvement around women, but when you take into account what they class it as BAM, which is Black, Asian and ethnic minorities, those figures haven't moved on in 7 years.
Wow. I kind of feel like we need an episode devoted just to that topic in the future, because I don't think we've got enough time to do it justice today. But
absolutely no.
Seeing so many women in tech events, so many diversity and inclusion events, but if it's not actually delivering the outcomes, then we have to kind of ask ourselves.
I think the biggest thing for me researching the white paper was actually when you start to look at data, what's the data that you're recording and what are you actually building all of your digital services and products on. And that, I think that is the big issue with diversity, because if your data is not diverse at the beginning, then, what are you actually building? Can you really see what, are you really analysing what you think you're analysing?
Yeah. And I guess, Chris, this would be a good point to come to you as well. And just, from a university perspective, can education address this? Do you see more or less diversity in the students that you have at Durham now?
Two questions there. Yeah, I mean, I think it can address it. I think it can address it through the research that we do in the research community, and making sure that those insights are out there and available to policymakers and managers in the public domain, and often they don't, right? And often they get published in academic journals, sort of put on in the library on the sort of virtual shelf, if you like, and not everybody can access them. I've just done a study myself this year. Looks like it's about to be published soon, looking at the role of diversity on innovation in Serbian companies.
Okay.
Serbia being quite an interesting context because of its transitioning from a communist sort of past, and we find mixed effects. And it's not the only study. There are other studies out there that say, diversity is great for creation and et cetera, but there can be other side effects as well. So one thing is making sure that research that universities do, particularly business schools, actually sort of comes out there and is readable, because some of it, there can be some quite advanced theoretical discussions going on. There can be some advanced statistics, and some people look at it and say, that's not really readable. So we've got to do, I think, a better job at making sure that those bridges are there as well. I also did some research this year, which is published, and I can make this available to you because this is out there now in an academic journal, on the way internet companies in China, predominantly in Beijing, use social networking sites in order to sort of advance their own thinking about international markets. These are companies whose leaders don't have a great amount of opportunity to sort of go abroad and get foreign market knowledge in order to make decisions about foreign markets in the same way that perhaps we do in the West. But also, there is criticism in China about the way the state has been quite authoritarian, and some would say oppressive, about how social networking sites and other internet sites are available or even usable by people in China. And we found an interesting effect that is supported by some theory, social categorization theory and other cultural values theories, that these companies are actually getting more benefit from using their own Chinese social networking sites than they are from using foreign social networking sites, things like Facebook and others, where there's so much diversity going on that they're getting confused. And when Chinese tend to use their own Chinese social networking sites, there's a completely different type of interaction and behavior going on. Yes, it's homogeneous. Yes, you're more likely to meet other Chinese speaking Mandarin, etc., but you'll be in a knowledge exchange environment where other people will be genuinely interested in who you are and what your challenges are.
Yeah.
So that kind of speaks to some of the things that you're talking about, in the sense that, us in academia, I think we do have some interesting studies that may be useful, and maybe there should be greater opportunities to share those studies and see if they can inform policy.
And what's been high on your agenda in 2019?
Well, on the online MBA side, we've got students all the way around the world. Some can come to campus here and do some of the education here. Many can't. They work on oil rigs or ships or live on desert islands, lucky them. And so they're completely reliant on the internet, and we deliver the material, we deliver webinars, we deliver all of these sort of things over the internet. And we know that student engagement is important. Our ranking very much depends on that. That's measured by the external auditing agencies. And so one of the things I've been doing is trying to improve the way we do student engagement, particularly through live case discussions and things like that. You know some of those things, Claire. So, that's the sort of here and now of trying to improve that. But one of the things that I saw in 2019, which I think is really quite interesting, and I think it is a big opportunity in the future. Let's see how things go. But this is the use of, as Paul was talking about, automation, robotics, and artificial intelligence in the classroom. And there's a couple of articles I came across this year, one in The Guardian and one in the Conversation UK sort of website, both by academics, asking the question about when will robots replace university lecturers. Okay, so we've had the thing about they're going to be replacing accountants one day because it's very rule based. We've had this thing about they're going to replace things like consultants one day as well. But what about lecturers? And so it kind of gets you thinking. There's the case of this robot in Germany. I think it's called Yuki, Y-U-K-I. You can sort of Google that and see it on YouTube. And it comes into the classroom and engages with students, and the instructor is sort of interacting with the robot. And there are pros and cons of that. And clearly, it's a very early prototype. But it does get you thinking about, can the student's experience be improved, enhanced, optimized by the use of automated tools? It may be a humanoid-shaped robot. It may not be. In the online space, like in our online MBA, clearly it's not a physical robot, but there may be certain applications that students would be able to actually interact with, or in an automated way, through the curriculum. Not to the detriment of their education and student engagement, but quite the opposite, hopefully to the benefit. So it raises all these issues. It raises ethical issues. It raises financial and performance issues. There have been debates in universities about people going on strike because of pensions and stuff like that, and other people pointing out, quite ironically, that robots don't require pensions. So it could be something that could be appealing to policymakers, maybe not this year or next year, but way down the line. Who knows where we're going to be in 50 years' time, really? I mean, in 100 years' time. I've just come back from Japan, as you know, and you see these robots in banks and shops and checking into hotels and all the rest of it. but can they actually come into the university environment, particularly in situations where some of the educational interface is quite mechanistic in some places, not in terms of advanced case discussions and perhaps more of the creative stuff, but there may be applications and ways in which it can be used in the future, but also ethical concerns too.
And I'm going to jump across and bring Kat in at this point, because Kat looks after our course production at ITSM Zone, and anybody who knows us knows that online learning is very dear to our heart. So we've always been interested in how the technology is changing education, and Kat actually wrote quite a detailed paper on us. And if we see the transformation that we've seen in 10 years of e-learning, absolutely, I can see robots in the future. But I'm going to bring you in at this point, Kat, and just kind of see if that reflects anything that you've been seeing this year.
Yeah, well, to be honest, mine's quite a different tack, but it does tie into everything everyone's been saying. But I think there's been a massive demand from soft skills, big demand for soft skills and information on soft skills, and that's showing no sign of slowing down, particularly in the areas of I've done lots of work on coaching, mentoring, managing difficult conversations, how to manage your team, how to work with your peers. And when I've presented at a few conferences on this, and particularly with the Agile Forum groups as well, but not only those, also service management areas. And I've just been inundated with requests for notes and personal help, advice. And I feel like people are really needing, feeling that they need to update their skills and improve their soft skills. And it made me think really quite hard about that. Why are we having such a demand for this? Why is that happening? And what I realized was there's been a lot of noise around automation, AI, big data, and what's happening with the future of that. And what keeps coming to the fore, as far as I can see, is about being creative. The skills that you need to have are things like creativity, problem solving, critical thinking, these kinds of things. And I think that with creativity, it's having those soft skills and being able to negotiate, being able to manage your team. These are things that are going to set people apart when you're looking at jobs for the future. So for me, that skill of, and I don't know whether you're something with you, Chris, about being able to obviously continue to learn, unlearn what you've learned before, relearn things in a new way in order to improve. And I think that from what Claire was saying about the work that we've done to improve our courses, we've rethought how we did them, we've rethought how they work for our learners, how we can incorporate all the activities and all of the processes that we're using in order to help people to learn in a way that suits them best and helps them to enhance their skills in the way that they need. So it's about tailoring our approach to the learner, and I think that's really important. So I think it's interesting as well what you were saying, Chris, about machines in the classroom and so on. But there obviously is a lot of noise about it. There's two tractions. People saying that it will. There's two arguments, isn't there? People saying that it will remove jobs, it will increase jobs, and there's just that big debate on it at the moment. So I think maybe that's why we're seeing such a demand for soft skills and soft skill training. But I found that it's continued and still continuing. One comment I got after a presentation was that this person took notes for their daughter because it's not just for business or IT use, this is for life learning. And I was like, that really resonated with me. It's about not stopping your learning, continuing to learn and continuing with your skills. So that's really what I've noticed this year. That real demand for soft skills in the face of the big changes that we're seeing in automation, AI and big data.
That's brilliant. Thank you. So we're kind of at the end of our time, which is always frustrating because I think there's so much more we could say, but that, thank you all, because there's a lot of food for thought there, I think. And if I could summarize it, it is almost this tension that we have now in the world between the really specialized technical skills, the demand for automation, and almost the expectation that technology is going to deliver something truly transformational. But as we automate away the simple tasks, the repetitive jobs, what's left actually puts a lot more challenge on the workforce. So there's kind of then education that needs to happen. We need to upskill our people to work in these more complex environments. So thank you very, very much to our panel. That's been really eye-opening for me. I really appreciate that. Our next episode of the ITSM Crowd is a bit more of a forward look to 2020, so that's in January with Richard de Kock, Johan Botha and Suzanne van Hove, so all VeriSM authors, and we're going to talk about if this digital transformation thing is so relevant, how on earth do you cut through the hype and make sense of all of it? So I'm going to say a huge thank you to our panel. Thank you so much for being with us today. Best wishes for 2020, and we will see you on the next episode of the ITSM Crowd. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Claire. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.